You are looking at one of the most iconic monuments in the history of human civilization, Mount Rushmore, South Dakota. On the left would be George Washington. Then you've got Jefferson, you have Roosevelt, and you have Lincoln. So it's a beautiful, beautiful summer night. And I'm going to be taking you to the Light Festival here at Mount Rushmore. It's about 7:30. Light Festival is going to be starting in just over an hour, rather. So it is absolutely a beautiful night. Earlier in the day, those faces were covered in fog, and as luck would have it, or maybe God's favor, rather, as God's favor would have it, the sky has cleared and we're going to see just an absolutely beautiful show. Let's go and enjoy the Mount Rushmore Monument here in beautiful South Dakota. Well, here is the entrance, Mount Rushmore National Memorial. So I thought it was National Monument, but it's actually National Memorial. And you know, the last time that I was here, I was probably all of about 5 or 6 years old. And I can't tell you, it's exciting to be back. Will you look at this? There they are. Washington, Jefferson, Roosevelt, and Lincoln. Fantastic. So they're going to have a ceremony every night at 9 o'clock. They have the light ceremony. And they're going to light up these flags right there. So it should be just absolutely fantastic. And it's a beautiful, beautiful evening. All right, so we've reached these ladies were just singing God Bless America, I think it was. Were you singing God Bless America? One more time, would you please? For everybody out there, on YouTube.
Oh, no. Wait a minute.
And say hello.
I remember the lyrics now.
Say hello to Skip Smith and the Villages,
Hello,
will you?
Skip.
Hi, Skip in the village.
Okay, go ahead. God bless America.
This is Debbie from Michigan.
Debbie
And
from
Laura from Southern California.
All right, fantastic. Let's take it, ladies.
God
Bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the slides.
Wait a minute.
Right from above.
From the mountains to the prairies to the oceans,
White with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. Thank you, ladies. Yeah, thank you. All right, fantastic. All right, so there you have it. You know, the ladies giving a shout out to Skip Smith and the Villages. All right, will you look at this? Wow. Really is something else. You know, you see pictures and postcards and you see this in movies and everything, but boy, to be right here with this really is something else. Maybe I can zoom in a little bit on those faces. So they're going to have a ranger come out here at about 9 o'clock. They're going to light the president's faces, and then they're going to give a nice talk about the history of the Mount Rushmore Memorial. So just absolutely fantastic. This is just great. All right, I'm going to take you for a walk. These would be if I'm not mistaken, I think that these are the flags of the 50 states. I see Iowa there. I see Maryland. I see the state flag of Maryland. And we're coming up to what's called the Grand View Terrace, which is just up a ways there. There is Janae doing her video. And actually these pillars, on the side of each of the pillars here, they have the states. North Carolina, the 12th state, admitted to the Union 1789. Come around over here, you have New York, the 11th state, admitted to the Union 1788. Really fantastic. Here's Oregon, the 33rd state, admitted in 1859. There's Rhode Island. keep coming along. Absolutely fantastic. Lincoln Borgia Museum and the Amphitheater. Stairs on the right. Just fantastic. Will you look at that? Just beautiful.
Tell him.
Look at that. Wow. We waited all day not knowing whether we'd get to see this or not. And we did. It's going to be beautiful when they light this up. We are just moments away from the beginning of the light ceremony here at the Mount Rushmore Memorial in South Dakota. And just as we're about ready to get started with the lights, wouldn't you know it, a sprinkle starts coming down upon us. So hopefully it's just going to be that, just a sprinkle. And I don't know really what to expect. Right in front of me, I found my way down to the amphitheater, and here comes a ranger, and I'll just let her...
What does it mean to be an American?
What does it mean to be an American?
To be American is so much more than a birthplace or a citizenship. To be American is to have a common heritage. It is to share your ideas and your ideals with the people around you. To be American is to know that no matter where you travel within this vast nation, you can turn to the person next to you and have something in common. You can turn to the person next to you tonight and share something with an otherwise stranger. The men carved high on the mountain behind me were chosen by the sculptor Gutzon Borglum because they illustrated the American experience. But more than that, they illustrate what it is to be American. And as each of these men contributed to our nation, they contributed to our meaning of what it is to be a part of this nation. They did so through their words and their actions. Those words and actions still guide us and resonate with us today. On July 4th, 1776, the Declaration of Independence was signed. That work by Thomas Jefferson solidified the very idea of an American people. Although that document's chief aim was to create this independent American nation, it also set forth the first ideas of what it is to be American. Thomas Jefferson had proudly told the world that to be American was simply to be free, to be independent and liberated people. And with that freedom, he asked his fellow citizens to create their own independent form of government and to pursue their own happiness. It was Thomas Jefferson's most deeply held belief that all people had the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that all people deserved to live free of despotism or tyranny in order to enjoy those rights. Jefferson believed so firmly in these ideas and in the United States of America, he chose to write those words down and stand beside them no matter the cost. When Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence, he knew the danger he was facing. He knew that this was treason. If this great American Revolution failed, he would face all of the punishments of treason. But still, he stood firmly behind his words and behind his beliefs. And in doing so, he showed us that to be American is to fight for your ideals. Although Jefferson's words formed those first ideas of what it is to be American, only one man is named as the father of this country. That man is George Washington, who led his men through the Revolutionary War and then guided this country through its infancy. Washington took this indistinct idea of what it is to be American and worked tirelessly to help it find its way. And as he did so, he showed us that to be American is to answer the call when your country needs you. Through all of his celebrated leadership roles, George Washington never sought power. He was a humble man, and he longed for a family life. But still, he found himself powerless to refuse when those positions were offered. After accepting command of the Continental Army, Washington wrote his wife to tell her that he did not seek out that position, but he could not refuse it. He felt that it was his duty, a duty owed to his character, and to his friends, and to his country. Whatever his doubts, Washington proved to be a strong and successful leader, and under his guidance, this ragtag volunteer American army was able to defeat a global superpower. After the war, Washington looked forward to retiring. planned to live out his days at home at Mount Vernon with his wife. But instead, he was called on once again by his country, this time to serve as our first president. And during the very first inaugural address given to this nation, Washington made no attempt to hide his hesitation. He opened by admitting that no event gave him greater anxiety than this presidential appointment he had just received. But still, it was his duty. And again, he proved to be a strong and successful leader as he led our country through its formative years. And he showed us that to be American is to answer the call when your country needs you, even in times of hesitation and doubt. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and many others worked hard to found this nation. They fought battles to win our independence and built a new form of government. And they scarcely would have guessed that less than 100 years after the Revolutionary War, a civil war would begin. But one president was determined to preserve the Union through all of its difficulties. Abraham Lincoln succeeded in that goal, and he also showed us that to be American is to remain united. In 1861, Abraham Lincoln delivered his first inaugural address. At this time, the prospect of civil war was looming, but had not yet broken out. It is here that he established his firm commitment to the national unity. Famously, he reminded his fellow citizens that civil war rests in their hands, not in his, as he had taken a most solemn oath to protect, preserve, and defend the American government and its union. Further, he implored his fellow citizens to remember that they were not enemies, but friends, united by the bonds of patriotism and by the memories of the battles that had won this country. But despite his hopeful words and his strong belief in national unity, civil war did follow. Abraham Lincoln faced many challenging decisions, difficult years, and bold actions. And in 1865, he delivered his second inaugural address, just weeks before the end of the Civil War. It is here that Abraham Lincoln showed us that he never wavered in his commitment to his ideals. He told the nation that the Civil War would end with malice toward none, with charity for all. They would do all to achieve and cherish a lasting peace. With these words and the actions that followed through on his promises, Abraham Lincoln showed us just how important that commitment is. And even in times of difficulty, even when we want to turn our backs on the people that we disagree with, to be American is to remain united. With the nation founded and unified, America now had a new opportunity to prosper. Theodore Roosevelt was ready to help the nation move forward and develop. As president, he took this opportunity to plan for the future and to show us that to be American is to leave the best possible future for later generations. Abraham Lincoln was Theodore Roosevelt was an energetic and driven man. Perhaps inspired by his own children, he focused a considerable amount of that energy on creating a better future. He wanted to make lasting changes that would benefit future generations universally. He fought for better conditions and protections for both workers and consumers. He sought improved working conditions, he broke business trusts and broke monopolies. But undoubtedly, his most famous actions were the conservation of the natural world around us. Under his guidance, Theodore Roosevelt created 230 million acres of land for conservation. He set aside game preserves, national forests, national monuments, and much more. Theodore Roosevelt wanted to leave a better future, not only for his own children, but for all of the children with us here tonight. He looked ahead and he saw the beauty of the natural world, and he saw how tremendous its loss would be. And he set aside those lands to conserve the wildlife, scenery, and natural resources within. Theodore Roosevelt showed us that to be American is to care for our future generations. To be American today is to be the sum of that common heritage and all of those shared experiences. It is to be the sum of the leaders that came before us. To be American is to fight for your ideals, to answer the call when your country needs you, to stay united through difficulty, and to care for later generations. And together, we share our nation's heroes and history and leaders. We also share our nation's challenges, mistakes, and failures. What it is to be American means something different to each of us, and that meaning is constantly changing. But through our words and our actions, we can help shape that meaning. But at its core, to be American is to be connected to one another, to have that common heritage and all of those shared experiences. As you find what it means to you to be American, remember that it is united we stand.
Bravo, bravo. Now I believe they're going to do the lighting of the memorial. As the camera tries to get focus. Somewhere up there.
The United States of America. It's hard to imagine, but not long ago, this great land of ours was pure wilderness. A place where millions of bison roamed freely throughout the plains. And those who lived off the land revered it as sacred ground. Yet this country would face a dramatic change, quickly becoming the most advanced nation in the world, in technology, in peace, and in power. From its inception, the United States has shaped itself under the guidance of strong leaders. Leaders who have taken risks, stood up to adversity, and never let go of their vision for a better country. Mount Rushmore reminds us of them, and the countless Americans who have made great sacrifices to ensure the lasting legacy of our country. Freedom. We strived for it. We died for it. We live for it. The year was 1923. The place, the Black Hills of South Dakota. State historian Doane Robinson proposed that these granite outcroppings could be the site of an enormous monument dedicated to the heroes of the West, such as Lewis and Clark and Chief Red Cloud. But commissioned sculptor Gutzon Borglum had a different concept in mind. Borglum was a passionately patriotic man, and believed that a more fitting tribute should honor the American experience. A memorial that would represent our ideals, our dreams, and our accomplishments as a country. A memorial that would convey a spirit of patriotism. Borglum chose his canvas carefully. The giant granite rock face of Mount Rushmore. And in 1927, work on the mountain began. Borglum assembled a team of local miners, ranchers, and lumbermen to help with construction. The sculptor built a model of the presidency to serve as a guide. Every inch of the model represented 1 foot of the mountain. Year after year, Borglum and his crew hung perilously on the side of the mountain, drilling and blasting their way to reach granite solid enough for carving. It took 14 years and nearly $1 million to complete the 4 60-foot faces. And even though the sculptor did not live to see the very final touches put into place, he was able to carry out his vision. 4 great Americans immortalized in stone. symbolizing the democratic society in which we live, the struggle for our independence, the fight for our freedom, and the sacrifices we have made since our country began more than 200 years ago. It was a time of rebellion and of war. It began as an uprising against British rule and turned into a full-fledged crusade for personal freedom and national independence. The American Revolution. From 1775 to 1783, up to 250,000 patriots engaged in battle. Even during the toughest times, when the Continental Army seemed undisciplined and ill-equipped, one man's courage and determination ultimately led the troops to victory over the British. The future father of our country, George Washington. Born and raised in colonial Virginia, George Washington grew up to be a firm believer in American independence. Even though his heart yearned for quiet family life at his Mount Vernon home, his deep commitment to the Republic made him answer the call of his country time and time again. As general, Washington became an instant hero throughout the colonies. The public was so enamored with him that many people wished that he become king. But Washington scoffed at such an idea.
The army must serve the country, but not rule it. Express your utmost horror and detestation of the man who wishes to overturn the liberties of our country. George Washington, 1783.
It was this kind of insight and integrity that made him the perfect person to oversee the creation of a new federal government. With no blueprint to follow, Washington kept the colonies united and on course during the infant years of this nation. And after ratification of the Constitution, when he was unanimously elected first President of the United States, Washington was keenly aware that he was laying down the framework for future presidents to follow. Washington's legacy is that of a man who was first in war, first in peace, and first in the hearts of his countrymen. In his inaugural address, he spoke of the task that lay before this new nation.
The preservation of the sacred fire of liberty and the destiny of the Republican model of government are justly considered as deeply, perhaps as finally at stake, on the experiment entrusted to the hands of the American people. George Washington, 1789.
George Washington well did this union, but it would take another great visionary to expand it. Thomas Jefferson, third President of the United States.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Thomas Jefferson, 1776.
Thomas Jefferson was the voice of the American people, inspiring patriots with his carefully crafted words written in the Declaration of Independence, the document that gave birth to our nation. It was also Jefferson who fought for religious freedom and the democratic notion that people should have a say in government, two very American principles we cherish today. Thomas Jefferson always thought of himself more as a scientist or scholar than as a politician. And it was this quest for knowledge that played a role in the greatest achievement of his presidency. In 1803, Jefferson acquired the French lands west of the Mississippi in the Louisiana Purchase, which doubled the size of the country. In an effort to find out what America now owned, Jefferson sent Meriwether Lewis and William Clark on their famous expedition out west. It was an exciting time of discovery for new Americans. However, what was good for a growing nation was not necessarily good for its original inhabitants. During this time of expansion, many Native Americans were uprooted from their homes and hunting grounds and pushed farther west. But during an address to a group of Cherokee chiefs, Jefferson prophesied about future relations between natives and new settlers.
I shall rejoice to see the day when the red men, our neighbors, become truly one people with us, enjoying all the rights and privileges we do, and living in peace and plenty as we do, without anyone to make them afraid, to injure their persons, or to take their property, without being punished for it according to fixed laws. Thomas Jefferson, 1848.
Jefferson's dream was slow to be realized as conflicts between the U.S. government and Native Americans set off a chain of events that dramatically reduced Native populations throughout the 19th century. Thomas Jefferson believed in the promise of America and had faith in the American people. But this faith would truly be tested nearly 60 years later, when the Republic came dangerously close to unraveling. The Civil War was the most tumultuous period in American history. The differences between the states had deeply divided a nation, pitting brother against brother on American soil. But it was the determination of one man to keep the United States united. Abraham Lincoln, our 16th president. Abraham Lincoln was a self-made man of great character, a frontiersman who came from humble beginnings. When Lincoln was inaugurated in 1861, he faced more adversity than any other president in U.S. history. Many southern states had withdrawn from the Union. And even though Lincoln opposed war, he warned the South in his inaugural address that he would take whatever measures necessary to stop the rebellion.
In your hands, my dissatisfied fellow countrymen, and not in mine, is the momentous issue of civil war. The government will not assail you. You have no oath registered in heaven to destroy the government, while I shall have the most solemn one, to preserve, protect, and defend it. Abraham Lincoln, 1861.
The Civil War raged on for 4 brutal years. But Lincoln stuck to his commitment to democracy. His main objective was to save the Union, and he also strongly believed in freedom for all Americans. Until slavery was abolished, Lincoln felt the U.S. could never truly be the home of the free. Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation began the process that ended the evils of slavery forever. Over 500,000 Union and Confederate soldiers lost their lives in the Civil War. But during his famous Gettysburg Address, Lincoln reminded the American people what this war was really all about.
That we here highly resolve that these dead should not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that this government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Abraham Lincoln, 1863.
Over the next 50 years, the United States would go through a dramatic transformation. was turning from a rural republic to a budding industrial power. It was clear that this new century, which burst with hope, needed a fresh start and a fresh approach. It was Theodore Roosevelt, our 26th president, who led the way.
Is America a weakling? To shrink from the work of the great world powers? No! The young giant of the West stands on a continent and clasps the crest of an ocean in either hand. Our nation, glorious in youth and strength, looks into the future with eager eyes and rejoices as a strong man to run a race. Theodore Roosevelt, 1897.
He was energetic, he was robust, and he was eager to show the world that America was a force to be reckoned with. Theodore Roosevelt believed in the strenuous life. Frail and sickly as a young boy, he overcame his illnesses and grew up to be a naturalist, a cowboy, a war hero, an author, and President of the United States by the young age of 42. His vigorous outlook on life transferred to the Oval Office. Roosevelt was a man of action. He promoted economic freedom and was a friend to the working class, protecting their rights against big business and what he called the criminal rich. Roosevelt also expanded the country's power abroad. It was his support of the 1903 revolution in Panama that led the U.S. to acquire territory for the construction of the Panama Canal. This massive undertaking not only created a valuable link between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, but it put the United States on the map in world politics. Yet, Roosevelt may be known best for his passion for the outdoors. He was vocal about conservation, and through the power of his presidency, he provided federal protection for almost 230 million acres of land.
To waste, to destroy our natural resources, to skin and exhaust the land instead of using it so as to increase its usefulness, will result in undermining in the days of our children the very prosperity which we ought by right to hand down to them amplified and developed. Theodore Roosevelt, 1907.
The pursuit of the American dream did not end with Theodore Roosevelt's term. Instead, it has carried us into the 21st century. Throughout history, countless Americans have made great sacrifices so that we can enjoy the freedoms of this land. The same freedoms guaranteed in our Constitution and Bill of Rights. The same freedoms millions of people have sought since the first immigrants arrived over 200 years ago. Gutzon Borglum reminds us of this with his timeless memorial. 4 Americans representing the birth, growth, preservation, and development of this country. All embodying the spirit of our nation. All advocates of freedom, dignity, and the ideals of American life.
What a beautiful, beautiful film. For amber waves of grain. Greatest country ever to grace the face of this earth. America represents peoples from all over the world. It's with that in mind that I say that this is the greatest country. beautiful. God bless America. Hope you enjoyed this visit to the Mount Rushmore Memorial in South Dakota. And if you have a chance, come and catch the light show. You won't be disappointed. God bless America.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise and join in singing America's national anthem.
Oh, they can
You see by the dawn's early light,
so proudly we hailed the twilight's
who's gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight. Ramparts we lost,
so gallantly
streaming,
and the
rockets and flags bursting in air. They proved through the night that our flag was still there. Say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave? Bravo! Okay, so they invited all of us military up to the stage. They invited all former and active duty military to come up. Somewhere out there is my friend Skip Smith and Sue and Yanae. The rain is starting to come down. And they're gonna lower the flag. I wish my dad were here with me, who passed away recently.
There we are. All right, let's start on that end with the challenges. Beautiful. Looks great, guys.
Actually, it's okay to get cold. Don't let it touch the ground. And always keep it illuminated. As soon as I saw that, I wasn't up in the middle of the No, it's not gonna fold in there.
That'll happen time to time. Happy to take that. Thank you so much. Thank you for all your help. Go ahead and rejoin the line.
Ladies and gentlemen of the audience, to conclude our ceremony, most of these men and women have never met each other, and yet tonight they are bonded together on stage. For most, this is the only public recognition they will ever receive for their willingness to serve. As they rejoin their families, let us show them how we feel about them with another round of heartfelt applause.
There you have it, folks. Serving in the military is one of the greatest things I ever did in my life.
Thank you for your service. This ends the evening flag ceremony.
All right, folks. Hope you enjoyed it.